Please. Yes. Good evening, everyone. This is the caucus meeting for the Beaufort County Council for Monday, February 28th, 2022. The council consists of 11 members. You will be able to see on the dais 9 of the members are present in person. The 2 members not present in person and online to participate are council members Dawson and Flewellen. So we do have a full complement of council members to conduct the business of council. Will you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Cunningham, would you lead us, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I will ask a member of County Council to make a motion to approve the caucus agenda. Mr. Rodman makes the motion. A second, please. Second. Mr. Cunningham makes the second. Is there any discussion? The agenda item will be approved without objections, and I see no objections. The next item is the review of the council agenda. It looks fairly lengthy, but most of the items have been discussed in the various committees, and we have public hearings. I'm sorry? Yes, just as soon as I get through this. So are there any questions regarding the council agenda? I have asked one specific member of council when I get to that item to be the person who will make the motion for that item. Any discussion about the agenda? Everybody is okay. All right. This evening, we have the executive chef from TCL who will be making a short presentation. Chef, do you wish to come forward?
Oh, there's a microphone.
Yeah, there's a microphone right there.
Come before, we just want to say thank you. We brought you some snacks out, everything homemade, obviously at the Culinary Institute. Pay close attention too. We have some chocolates on the table, and we actually have a Culinary Institute of the South seal now. So just don't grab and eat it, but actually take time to take a look at it. Chef Orak, our department head, has been feverishly working on this and tempering, and we didn't use cheap chocolate either. We got some really good Calbo. But classes are going really great. We started classes, as you know, on January 10th. We just completed our first 7-week classes, and we will be starting again on the 3rd of March with another 7 weeks. Dining room has been full. Cafe is selling. We've had so many visitors now come in. We're actually selling out of products, so that's a really good problem to have. We're starting events, and we will soon be starting a lot of continuing education, so really keep posted for that. Any questions for me?
Cafe is lunchtime?
It's a grab and go for the lunch, but we also have the restaurant that will be open also. So we have basically through the cafe, we have outdoor seating.
And it's just hours at lunch.
Yes, right now. As we expand, when we built this building, we talked about 300 students. I think we will be there pretty soon, but it can hold the capacity for 400. Once we do that, we would like to offer also nighttime dining as well as lunch. The baked goods, actually, we've been getting a lot of compliments, the best baguettes in the area. So if you happen to get over and have one of Chef Jackie's baguettes, everybody's going like, these baguettes are to die for. So, but they go fast. So, Chef, all right?
It's, we're open 7:30 to 2. We might extend the afternoon hours a little bit more just to reach the later afternoon. But I would say baguettes Wednesdays and Thursdays, or even up to Friday. 7:30 a.m.
Yeah, and we also have coffee and juice and that sort of stuff. And remember, when you go in, it's everything's being run by students. So students run the dining room, students cook for the guests in the dining room, students run the cafe, and students do all the baking if they pass for muster to get into the, if they get into the cafe. Any more questions?
Thank you.
It is a beautiful building.
It-
It's well-stocked. Great for us to have something like that for our students.
Yes, it's, it started in January with free tuition. So we are getting students, actually, we're starting to see students now from all over the state. So that's what we wanted, that's what we planned for. Hopefully, we can make an impact in the industry. I know we can't meet everybody's needs, but we will try.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
And thank you to the council, too.
Thank you.
Best
Please
of luck.
enjoy.
Y'all can go out there on the way into executive session.
Right.
We should have one of our meetings in that cafe.
Yes, we can do that. Okay. We have a fairly lengthy executive session this evening, so I'm going to ask a member of council to make a motion for the executive session for items 7, 8, and 9, which are pursuant to South Carolina Code 30-470A2. Item 7 is the receipt of legal advice, where the legal advice relates to matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, elected officials' budgets. Item number 8 is for legal advice regarding Road LLC versus Beaufort County. And number 9 is negotiations incident to the proposed contractual arrangements and proposed sale or purchase of real property identified as surplus property. So may I have a motion for those items,
So
please?
moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, Larry made the motion. Who was the second, please?
That was me.
Mr. Flewelling was the second. Any discussion?
Just one point.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure there's
Open your
good
mic, please.
I'm sure there's good reason for for legal advice, but I would think a lot of what we would talk about, their budgets would be ones that we would do in open session in general.
We did entertain that. We do need to give you some legal opinions about the elected officials' budget in executive session, and then there will be a chance for you all to discuss in open session if council elects to make any kind of motion to give a staff direction after we have the discussion in executive session. So we agree.
Okay. Any further discussion? We will be in executive session without objection, and I see no objections, so it is 4:13, and we are now going to be in executive session.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Let me know when we're ready to go. Okay. All right, we're out of executive session. There are no further action before us in the county council caucus meeting. The caucus meeting is now adjourned.
What's your recess do we have?
5 minutes.
Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Evening, everyone. I would like to call the County Council meeting of Monday, February 28th to order. Attendance has been taken. This is a public meeting of County Council. We have an 11-member council for those who are in the audience and for the very first time who have not seen us in person, or those of you who are online. We do have 2 council members online. Council Member Dawson and Council Member Flewelling are on Zoom. The other 9 members are here in person so that we have a full council to conduct business. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then after that remain standing for the invocation? Mr. Cunningham, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet today, Lord. We're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to continue to serve this community. Let our decisions that we make be on that path. Whether we agree or disagree, ultimately, that's why we're here for. We'd like to take a moment to lift up the war right now in Ukraine and Russia. We're blessed, Lord, to be able to live in a country where we don't have to worry about the things going on like that day in and day out. We have freedoms that we take for granted. I pray that we continue to be reminded of those. Do not take it for granted, Lord. And I also pray for a swift and peaceful ending of the resolution in Ukraine. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to remind all council members that you have brand new microphones in front of you. If it's on red, you are muted. Please make sure if you're going to speak, you hit the button to turn it green. Public notice of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask a member of council to make a motion to approve the County Council agenda.
So moved.
Motioned. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Gerald was loud enough. He will get the second, and Larry will get the first. So we have it duly motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the agenda will be approved without objections, and I see no objections. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of February 7th, 2022. May I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McKellen makes the motion. A second, please. Mr.
I'll
Cunningham
second.
makes the second. We have it duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the minutes will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Next, we will turn to our administrator, Mr. Greenway, for your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to the residents of Beaufort County who are here with us tonight or watching us on the county channel. Good evening to the rest of the county council. The item of announcement that I have tonight is to give you all an update on the status of the Arthur Horn building construction. Many of you are interested in that. You may or may not be aware that about 5 months ago, I made a decision to change the arrangement of that building to give additional space on the second floor for a larger jewelry pool room and a courtroom that could also be a dual purpose room for large meetings and things like that. As a result of that decision and COVID-related delays on supplies and work and things, it is now projected, instead of the building being completed in February of 2021, which is today, it's our last year, it's going to be now completed in September or October of 2022. We are continuing to make modifications to the second floor to move our county channel and communications department into the second floor, and again to provide larger courtroom space for the magistrate on the second floor. In addition to that, the building is now a little bit over a budget of about $900,000 because of those modifications that we've had to employ and due to cost overruns because of the COVID pandemic. We are going to be finding the money to fund about half of that in this year's budget, and we'll be asking for you all to allocate additional expenditures to complete the building in the upcoming budget year. So that's where we stand on Arthur Horn. So September, October, and then the old building will be demolished. Parking lot work will be done as a part of the new budget next year. As is customary, I have about 5 employees I would like to introduce to you this evening and highlight them for the county. The first one on our list tonight is an employee of the Register of Deeds, Lisa Jenkins. I'm assuming since her name is in parentheses, she goes by Lisa. She is a real property recording technician. She has been with us for 15 years. That's quite an amazing tenure as a county employee. Lisa provides general information to the public. She researches, indexes, and verifies payment processing, and she scans and records account receivables for that department. She has worked with us since 2006. She has an associate's degree from TCL in public service and utilizes her skills on a daily basis. We get many accolades for Lisa in her pleasant personality and her public assistance. She is a team player and meets high standards for the knowledge required for her job as a real property recording technician. And they tell me that reliability is synonymous for her name, Lisa. Lisa is a native of Brooklyn, New York, but moved here with her 5 siblings when her parents returned to their hometown of Beaufort. She graduated from Beaufort High as a Proud Eagle in 1989. She has 3 children and enjoys spending time with her husband and 6 grandchildren. She does not look to me to be old enough to have 6 grandchildren, but job well done. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Is she on? Is she on Zoom?
If she is, I'm not sure what
Okay.
her name would be. You can ask.
Lisa, if you are on, would you like to say a few words to the council? Okay, we'll move on. Our next employee is from our Human Services Department. Many of you know her because you worked with her when she was clerk to council, Ms. Connie Shire. She's a senior administrative supervisor with Human Services. She's been with us 3.5 years. She, of course, provides supervisory support of administrative services for the programs and processes of the Human Services Department. Connie, something unique about her is she's a world traveler and also a musician. I did not know that about Connie. I knew she traveled, but I did not know she was a musician. Connie, are you on? Oh, she's not on either. Okay, all right. And then our third employee is Miss, someone else you're familiar with, and she is on. I just saw her popped up there, Miss Beth Cody with our Disabilities and Special Needs Division. She's the Fiscal Operations Manager. She will have been with us 11 years in June, coming up this year. She creates and manages a $9 million budget across 24 org codes with multiple funding sources. So she has a big task ahead of her. For those of us in the business, org codes are what we have to code things to, either as revenue or as expenditures, and 24 is a lot to keep up with. She oversees departmental expenditures to ensure that funds received from various sources are utilized as per Medicaid, state and county guidelines, performs financial analytics. She does projections and forecasts of revenues and expenditures, and she provides administrative support to comprehensive audit processes in the county, state, and federal level. Beth is a third-generation St. Helena Island native from a shrimping family, so it's hard to say. She has a thirst for knowledge, and if she doesn't know something, she'll go find it out. You all are familiar with Beth's work. She's presented to you all several times. Beth, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to say a few words to council now, but thank you for your service.
Thank you for, appreciate you noticing all the staff. Just want to say thank you specifically to the council for your support of disabilities and special needs. And I would like to invite you all to come over to our office or to any of our homes. We would very much like to help you get to know our individuals a little bit better.
Thank you, Beth. Let's give Beth a round of applause, and also Connie. The final person this evening is someone that I know in a very personal way, because I worked with her for a few years before I became county administrator. When I was planning director, many of you are familiar with her as well. That's Miss Amanda Flake from the Planning and Zoning Department. She's the Natural Resources Planner. She's been with us 14 years. I have a whole list of stuff here to say about her, what she does, but I'm going to depart from the script a little bit and just talk about what she does do. She manages all of our plans for natural resources in the county, river buffer waivers, tree removals on properties. She does the Rural and Critical Lands program, works with our Open Land Trust, oversees that program on the behalf of the Planning and Zoning Department. I aggravate her a lot about what she does do and how she goes about doing it, but I am truly appreciative of the work that she does for the Planning and Zoning Department. I count her to be both a co-worker and a personal friend. She does an amazing job for the Planning and Zoning Department. Something unique about her that I did not even know is that she is a first-degree black belt in something called Chung Kuk Do, which is the Chuck Norris system of karate. And she is a member of Club Karate here in Beaufort, South Carolina. So I better be careful in the future about how much I aggravate you, hadn't I, Amanda? So anyway, let's give Amanda a round of applause. And Amanda, do you want to say anything?
Sure. I just thank you. I can't believe it's been 14 years. It goes back quick, but I enjoy my job. I enjoy working in the planning department. My coworkers are amazing, and I enjoy collaborating with other departments, as well as county council and the Rural and Critical Lands program. So thanks for the recognition.
Thank you, Amanda. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Council. Thank you for having us here today, Patrick. It's been great working with you the past, 3.5, almost 4 years for myself, and work with Chris just very recently, Chris Opert. So anyway, good evening. Hargray is thrilled to be able to partner with Beaufort County in the Broadband Everywhere project. As many of you know, there are underserved communities, markets across the U.S., specifically what we call Tier 3, Tier 4 typical communities, similar to many of our counties out here in Beaufort County. The good news is that Hargray over the past 70 years has invested and paved the way for fiber-rich cable plant, as well as cable plant in many of these communities. It was just 70 years ago, and it doesn't seem like that long ago, that it was just copper facilities here. And even today up on the island in Bluffton and in Beaufort, we still have, there's still copper out there. Hargray has just continued to invest with Cable One Sparklight now, and making much more a lot of investments into this community, and building out more fiber facilities wherever we can, and continuing to add on with our cable plan as well. It's not easy. It takes time, a lot of time to invest, and it's never as fast as everyone would like. And with some of those communities that are out there, it takes time to get those facilities out. So This project aligns perfectly with our purpose to empower people and communities to connect and thrive. Hargrave proudly supports Beaufort County's goal to ensure this entire residential communities have access to critically important high-speed data services. And we're thrilled to present this check today for $20,000 to help get this started a little bit faster. So, thank you very much, Patrick. Yep.
Thanks. Patrick.
Turn it around. Sorry. Wait, we gotta get a picture. Thanks.
And then, do they want to see?
I was gonna,
Oh,
I was
yes.
gonna take a picture of you guys too.
Oh, yeah.
From
Definitely
this
put
angle.
a step right over here.
There you go. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we are at our citizen comments. We do have two people in the audience who wish to address County Council. The first one is Paula Brown.
Okay.
Paula, will you come forward?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank all of you, county, and my representative, Chris, over here. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay. I am here today to request that the Beaufort County Council get rid of the voter machines and go to paper ballots. It doesn't matter if you voted on a machine, a Dominion, Smartmatic, or ES&S. They are all defective. Since I am only allowed to speak 3 minutes today, I have a 7-minute video from an intel summary video from Seth Kessel, a captain in the Army, regarding Beaufort County, South Carolina. However, I am able to email the video to Chris if he would like me to do that. In addition, for the last 20 years, our officials have been selected, not elected, thanks to the voting machines. How do I know this? I came from Washington, D.C. I worked for President Ford back in the 70s, and I know how the system works. I'm very familiar with the way the system works. But anyway, this isn't a Democratic or Republican issue. This is an issue for all of us. And anyone in this room that voted for Joe Cunningham in the last election, I have to ask you, are you sure that Joe lost by 11,232 votes? Are you sure about that? The buck stops on your desk, not the Secretary of State, not the Board of Elections, where all the bureaucrats have been installed with all this pork, fat, and taxpayer dollars that is just thrown down the toilet. You wouldn't drive a car down the road that's affected with brakes. The brakes are defective. Knowing that your vehicle couldn't stop, that is exactly what is happening here now. We are in this vehicle that doesn't seem to be stopping, and it's only picking up speed. And the braking system is not working. We need to get rid of the voting machines and go to paper ballots. Thank you for hearing me.
Next is Arnold Brown.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity of being here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. Appreciate your prayer for the country of Ukraine and their leaders. They want the same thing that we have here in America, and let's continue to pray for them that they will be victorious over a dictatorship country. The reason I'm here this afternoon is that there are some concerns about the residents in the St. Helena community about Martin Luther King Drive Pathway Project. And what I would like to ask, bring to your attention tonight is that the community is concerned about oak trees being removed. Okay, there was a survey done, trees were tagged with a red ribbon, and the community really went up in arms, called a special meeting because they wanted to know what the red tags on the 20-plus trees were about. The community, the residents on MLK also is concerned about drainage. What is the drainage plan? Okay? And in the Penn School community, as you know, is a historic district. There's only 3 in the state, and we're investigating that. We don't know if the removal of several trees will affect their certification. So we want to bring that to your attention. We need to work, and we're working with Department of Interior to find out what we can and cannot do, and those are one of our concerns. We made a suggestion at the meeting that was held on November 4th of last year that the sidewalk be limited to 5 feet, and that, and I can show you a diagram. It's not very good. The next time we have a meeting, maybe I'll bring something. But if from the highway, which is 20 feet, I believe, wide, and there'll be a green space no more than 12 inches, a foot, sidewalk of 5 feet, there would be a drainage ditch area here, and then a person's yard or lawn. And that's the recommendations we would like to make, that the sidewalk is placed as close to the road as possible and not in residents'
You
yard.
have 30 seconds left, sir.
Thank you. And so finally, we ask that the project timeline be shared with the community. If it's not a confidential document, that it be sent to members of the community so we can communicate to the community what is happening, what is the timeline, so they don't panic. So I would like to know, and we have these questions and maybe other questions, who do we send it to?
Okay. You will send it to our county administrator,
Okay.
okay?
Is he here tonight? Can I get a card? Have a card? Okay, I'll give you mine. Okay. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and let's keep Ukraine in our prayers. Thank you.
Okay.
Eric, would it be possible for us to get a report on that as well, for those that aren't familiar with that project?
Yeah, so I can give you a brief synopsis right now. We're nowhere near the design yet. We just went through the first public meeting process. We will now get what we call 30% design drawings done. We will hold another public meeting out there with the community that will be advertised and all, but I'll get the schedule for you all and email it out to the county council as well.
Okay, thank you. Our first citizen comment section is over. We're going to go to the presentation of the fiscal year 2021 annual comprehensive financial report. And who will be starting that?
Good evening, everyone. I will. My name is David Irwin. I'm with Malvin Jenkins. Bear with me for a second. Share my screen here. You all see that?
Now we do.
Okay. All right. Well, again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all are doing well. Again, my name is David Irwin, and I'm with Malvin Jenkins. I was the partner who oversaw this year's audit of the county's financial statements, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to discuss with you all the results of this year's audit. All right, there we go. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but the purpose of this evening's presentation is to provide you all an overview of our independent auditor's report, talk about the results of the 2 compliance reports that we issue in conjunction with the audit, hit a few of the financial statement highlights, discuss some information that the auditing standards requires that we communicate to you all, and to answer any questions that you all may have. Now, the financial statements themselves, they are the responsibility of county's management and members of the council. As your independent auditors, our responsibility is to express an opinion on these things. We conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards. And I'm happy to say that we are issuing a clean or unmodified opinion on this year's report. This is what you want. This is the highest level of assurance that we can provide as your external auditor. What this means is that, in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. As part of the audit, there are 2 compliance reports that we also issue. The first of which is the single audit report. Again, this is a compliance audit that is required when an entity has over $750,000 in federal expenditures during the year. And you all had approximately $5.6 million of federal expenditures in FY21. As was the case with a financial audit, we are issuing a clean or unmodified opinion on the single audit as well. The second compliance report is something we call the Yellowbook Report, which is a report on the county's internal controls and your compliance with the various laws and regulations. And I'm pleased to report to you all that we do not have any audit findings this year, meaning we noted no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the county's internal control during our audit. And with you all being one of the larger counties in South Carolina, and as you can see when you look through your financial statements, there's quite a bit of financial activity for which you all have to account for. In addition, with all the new accounting standards and changes that are being implemented each year, and really just how complex the financial reporting process has become, it makes it all the more impressive to be able to be here this evening and inform you all that you're receiving a clean opinion with no audit findings. So, again, that's certainly something that you all are proud of. I really can't say enough about the job that management and the finance department did this year. This was the earliest the county's audit has been completed in nearly 10 years. So, Eric, Whitney, Hayes, Denise, the entire finance department worked extremely hard to help make this happen. Everyone was very accommodating to our audit team and, again, worked hard to address all our questions and get us everything that we needed in order to get the audit finalized. So, you all have done a really good job of building a strong finance department over the past couple of years. They are proactive. They're always looking for ways to improve. And, they're already scheduling and planning for the June 30, 2022 audit. So, again, if I'm in your shoes, I'm excited to see how things continue to progress going forward. Now for a brief overview of your financial statements. Again, you all prepare what is called an annual comprehensive financial report, otherwise known as an ACFR. And an ACFR requires the inclusion of additional information that goes above and beyond the basic financial reporting requirements. And this document is submitted annually to the Governmental Finance Officers Association, otherwise known as the GFOA, where they put it through a pretty stringent review process, not only by their GFOA professional staff, but also a special review committee. And when they look at the county's ACFR, their goal is not to assess the financial health of the county. What they want to do is to ensure that the readers of your financial statements have the necessary information available within your report to be able to do so themselves. And through this review, the GFOA has once again awarded the county the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year 20. And that certificate is included in this year's report. So I believe this is the 12th year in a row that the county has received the certificate. So congratulations to you all on that. Again, this is a very impressive document and one that you all should be proud of. Now, as you look through the financial statements, one section I always like to point out is the management's discussion analysis, otherwise known as the MD&A. This begins on page 4. It's right after our audit opinion. And if you can, I would strongly encourage everyone to read this section. The purpose of the MD&A is to make it easier for a broader audience to use and better understand the county's financial statements. And it does this by providing a narrative explanation of the financial statements from the perspective of management. So again, this section does a really good job of summarizing the basic financial statements and providing the reader with an analytical overview of the financial activities that occurred during the year. So again, if you can, as you look through your report, please take the time to read through the MD&A. Now, the county's basic financial statements, they are broken up into three components, the first of which being the government-wide statements. Now, the government-wide financial statements, they provide a broad view of the county's operations in a manner similar to what you would see in a private sector business. All of the county's funds are combined under either governmental activities or business type activities, depending on the nature of the fund. So this slide here, it summarizes the county's financial activity for the year from the government-wide perspective. And as you can see, the county ended the year with assets and deferred outflows of resources of approximately $986 million. Of that amount, around $581 million are your capital assets, net of accumulated depreciation. You all also had around $415 million in liabilities and deferred inflows, which resulted in an ending net position of approximately $571.6 million for the year. Looking at your revenues, total revenues, they're around $278 million, and expenses were right at $185 million, which resulted in an increase in net position of approximately $93.2 million for the year. So, when you compare that to FY20's increase of $66.6 million, it goes without saying that it was a very good year for you all from a government-wide perspective. Revenues were up about $16 million, and expenses were down around $10 million compared to prior year. So again, this is a brief overview from the government-wide perspective. That being said, this is really the only time you'll see the county's financial activities reported in this manner. In the day-to-day operations of the county, the focus is more so on the individual funds themselves. Which brings me to the second component of your financial statements, which again are the fund level statements. So, again, this is what you all typically see throughout the year. This component focuses on individual parts of the government, and it reports the county's operations in more detail than that, the government-wide statements. And, when you talk about all the different funds of the county, of primary interest to you all would be the general fund, main operating fund of the county, and therefore it accounts for the majority of the revenues received and funds expended. So we have a couple charts in the next two slides that further break down the general fund's revenues and expenditures for the year. So as you can see on this slide, total revenues for the general fund were approximately $141 million. And that's an increase of approximately $3 million compared to prior year. Obviously, the vast majority of the general fund's revenues are derived from property taxes, which total around $110.5 million for the year, and it represented about 78% of the total revenues of the general fund. A couple other significant sources of revenue worth mentioning, charges for services, around $14.2 million, and intergovernmental revenue was about $10.5 million for the year. This next chart presents the general fund's expenditures for the year by function. Total expenditures were approximately $116.6 million, which was an increase of about $6.5 million compared to FY20. Again, as you would expect, public safety, public works, general government, those functions represent the majority of these expenditures. Public safety was around $43 million, and it accounted for approximately 37% of the general fund's total expenditures, which is actually on the lower end of what we typically, from a percentage standpoint, it's on the lower end of what we typically see with other governments of your size. Public works expenditures were just under $16 million for the year, and general governmental expenditures were approximately $39.5 million, both of which were comparable to prior year. In total, the general fund's fund balance increased by approximately $17.8 million. For an ending balance of $71.6 million for the year. So the chart on this slide, it shows the fund balance history of the county's general fund over the past 5 years. This is always, to me, an interesting chart to see. It's always interesting to kind of reflect back on where you were and compare to where things currently stand. And as you can see on this chart, you all have done a great job of increasing your fund balance, especially over the past 3 years. So again, hats off to you all on that. And speaking of fund balance, one thing I always like to remind people is that fund balance is not what you all have in the form of cash for discretionary spending. Fund balance is merely the difference between assets and liabilities, only a portion of which is available cash. Another thing to keep in mind is the general fund incurs expenditures of just under $10 million per month. So you all end the year with an unassigned fund balance equal to around 6 months worth of your operating expenditures. And what that means is if the county closes its doors on June 30th, it could continue to operate for approximately 6 months without any additional revenue sources. So, again, with you all having a June 30 year end, it's good to see that the county has a fund balance sufficient enough to cover those expenditures through the months of July through November, when your revenues are typically down. One further thought on that, the GFOA, which again is where you submit your ACFR for certification, depending on the year end, they recommend that entities maintain a fund balance of somewhere between 3 to 6 months worth of general fund operating expenditures. So again, you all are right in line with GFOA's recommendation. So again, as I mentioned earlier, in looking at this chart, you all have done a really good job, especially over the past 3 years, of getting your fund balance up to that recommended level. A couple other funds I want to briefly mention are your enterprise funds, which are your stormwater, your Beaufort Executive Airport, and your Hilton Head Island Airport. Again, enterprise funds, they're used to account for operations in a manner similar to that of a private sector business. The goal of these funds are to be self-sufficient and therefore to generate sufficient operating revenues to cover their operating expenses. So the chart on this slide, it shows the revenues and expenses for each of these three funds. As you can see, the Stormwater Utility Fund had a good year, ended the year with operating income of approximately $2.4 million. The Beaufort Executive Airport, it was relatively flat. It had a slight operating loss of around $25,000 for the year. And the Hilton Head Airport had operating income of approximately $127,000 for the year. When you factor in the non-operating revenues and expenses that these funds have, and as well as the significant amount of capital contributions that the Hilton Head Airport receives, as you can see on this slide, you can see the net effect of each fund's net position compared to prior year. And so as I mentioned, the Beaufort Executive Airport, again, it was flat for the year. The Stormwater Utility had an increase in net position of $2.3 million, and the Hilton Head Islands Airport, its net position increased about $3.4 million for the year. The majority of that came from federal grants. But again, with the exception of the Beaufort Executive Airport, which had a slight operating loss, the other two funds generated an operating income this year, which again is what you want to see out of your enterprise funds. One final item discussed with you all, again, is just certain information about the audit that the auditing standards requires that we communicate. With the county receiving a clean opinion and no audit findings, the information on this slide is essentially a formality, but we had no difficulties in dealing with management. We had no disagreements with management. We had no uncorrected misstatements. And again, we are independent of the county as required by governmental auditing standards. And with that, unless anybody has any specific questions, that concludes my presentation. But as I mentioned earlier, there's quite a bit of information in your financial statements. What I've tried to do is just hit the highlights of what I think is of most importance to you all. But if there's anything here that I didn't touch on that you have questions about, please don't hesitate to ask. But again, I feel like this year's audit went extremely well, and I just want to thank your staff for all their hard work this year. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to be a service to the county, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members? Mr. Harvishon, you go first. Don't forget to turn your microphone on.
Thank you. Great job by the finance staff, obviously. Question for you, David, and thank you for the presentation, very helpful. Can you describe the procedures used to test the capital assets balance and what the materiality threshold is on that?
We test capital asset additions. We also look at your capital asset disposals for the year. I do not have the materiality threshold on hand, I could get that information. But we also, we always try to incorporate a level of unpredictability in the audit outside of our materiality thresholds. But we also review repairs and maintenance accounts to make sure that there were not any balances, any transactions that were improperly excluded from your capital asset additions.
Thank you. Is there any physical inspection?
There's not.
Thank you.
Mr. Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am really interested in the fund balance and the reserve. This is the first time I ever heard that the reserve is not all cash. So what percentage of that fund balance is actually cash or investment? And is the remaining of it in property asset?
Well, again, the definition of fund balance is really what's left over after you net your liabilities with your assets. In looking at your general fund cash, you all had cash and pool cash and investments of $69 million. But you also had total liabilities of $14 million to kind of negate that. So, it's a combination of receivables that you all have not yet received as of year end. You also have an $8.7 million advance to the general funds, to the Beaufort Executive Airport as well as the Hilton Head Island Airport that is currently receivable on the county's books. So, again, those are receivables that are not in the form of cash that help make up that unassigned fund balance.
And you also said that a good recommendation is for a 3 to 6 months fund balance to operate, and we're at roughly over 6 months now.
You're right at 6 months, but one thing I would keep in mind is included in that, as I mentioned earlier, is your advance to the enterprise funds of $8.6 million, and that's actually a management point item that we had. It was not a finding; it was just a recommendation of management, just to periodically review the financial activities enterprise funds and really their ability to pay. These advances to other funds, they really should be treated as any kind of receivable from an outside entity. You have to look at their ability to pay and come up with a game plan of how's the general fund going to recoup that $8.6 million advance to the enterprise funds.
There's another question I have, but my mind slips right now, so thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, David. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, we have a fairly lengthy agenda now. We're going to begin with the liaison and committee reports. One word, brevity.
Uh-oh. I'll be quick. Recently attended the NACO annual...
Please put your...
Oh, yes. I recently attended the NACO annual legislative conference, and we had an opportunity to visit with some of our legislators. That's always helpful. In addition, I serve on 3 of their committees, and I will very briefly tell you the highlights. One committee I serve on is the Environment, Energy, and Land Use Committee, and they spent a lot of time talking about the current administration's interpretation of navigable waters, and this is particularly onerous to farmers, but also to builders and developers, so there's a lot of discussion about that. I serve on the Immigration Committee, and there was a lot of discussion, but no specific or particular or relevant recommendations that came out of it. The Veterans Committee that I serve on, I raised my hand and pointed out that our coroner's office had numerous unclaimed remains, and several somebodies did a lot of investigative work to find out who they were, who their families were, could they be contacted, and so on. And it was found that 4 of them were veterans, and we had a really lovely ceremony to inter the remains of those 4 veterans with full military honors. And I mentioned that to the group, and they were surprised. They thought that was a great idea. Nobody had ever thought of that. And speaking with the coroner, David Ott, he singled out Carla Anderson Smith for special recognition, and he asked if we at some point could recognize her at this council, and I'm pretty sure we can talk our chairman into doing that. Thank you.
Okay. Other committee reports. Ms. Howard.
Briefly, I attended the TCL meeting. Their dual enrollment program is continuing to grow and be successful in the high schools, and also they're expanding to Hampton County with that program. I attended the Beaufort Memorial Hospital meeting, and as you would expect, recruitment is an issue, especially of the nursing profession, but they are hopeful with their establishment of a program for first-time buyers of houses to assist with a repayable down payment, that they will be able to recruit more people in those needed positions at Beaufort Memorial Hospital. And the Natural Resource Committee met February 7th. A lot of the things on our agenda are follow-ups to those things, but I won't go through them. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the consent agenda, there's several items coming out of the recent public facilities meeting. Item number 9 is a engineering and permitting services for what's known as the Burnt Church Road improvements. It's a combination of the road, and it picks up the pathway that was approved in the referendum back in 18. Those funds will come out of the impact fees. Number 10 is the 5th of 5 years of the resurfacing. It's approximately a $2.5 million expenditure. And I should point out that our CTC gains a lot of respect across the state for the wonderful job they're doing in terms of prioritizing and getting roads done. And I think we're at a point now where we don't have any roads that are in a poor condition. And I was advised today, I think, that in the state budgeting that's taking place now, it looks like we may get another $6 million for doing what's known as the state secondary roads. Items number 11 and 12 are just where we're granting permission to apply for grants. Number 13 is an additional work authorization for work at the Hilton Head Airport for our consultants to do a good job for us. It's a $200,000 approval, but there's a relatively small, probably 10% of that that's really planned for the current year, with most of that looking to where they help us in negotiating the contracts with the airlines. And then, I'm sorry?
Keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought somebody said something. And then we have 11 reappointments to the Keep Beaufort Beautiful Board, to the Stormwater Board, and to the Regional Transportation Authority. And we have 2 first-time appointments, one Paul Manning to the Beaufort County Transportation Committee, and Brenda McPhee to the Keep Beaufort County Beautiful. And so those are the items. They all came out of public facilities unanimously, I believe, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Harvishon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be super brief, but I attended the CTC retreat a few weeks ago with Councilman Rodman and Councilman Passman. It was a great event, so kudos to county staff for putting that on, and especially Craig Gordon, who chairs that committee. It was very informative, and I'm sure that we're going to be seeing a whole bunch of items that came out of that at council. Also attended the Keeping Beaufort Beautiful meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that came out of that meeting is just what a great job county staff is doing on litter control. A lot of that committee is focused on litter control, and they're really doing God's work there. But apparently we've had some success with cameras around the county in helping to control the population of litter, and apparently we need some more resources for that. So I would just urge county staff to make sure that we get that in the budget for this year, and then also to this council to make sure that that's in there as well. I think it's a worthwhile effort. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Before we proceed on, I just want to let everyone know on County Council that Mr. Somerville, myself, and several members of the staff, we went to Columbia for the SCAC, the South Carolina Association of Counties Mid-Year Conference, where several of us took classes and went to the State House to meet with our legislative delegation to ensure that we're getting our fair share of funds coming from the state. So we are now at, yes, sir.
Since you mentioned Columbia, I just want to acknowledge that I did go up to Columbia, I forgot, last week, I think, to appear with the governor and Senator Kempson concerning the the Conservation Easement Act that is being brought forth before the General Assembly, and I basically went there to support that endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're at the public hearings and action items, and our first one is the approval of the consent agenda. I would ask a member of council to make a motion to approve the entire consent agenda, which consists of 18 items from the Executive, Finance, Natural Resources, and Public Facilities Committees. May I have such a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. So moved.
Oh, okay. We have it moved by Larry, and second?
Second.
Seconded by Paul. Duly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Hello?
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm happy to be serving on this committee. I've been working on a podcast about the history of Beaufort County with Larry Rowland, and extremely interested in looking at and preserving and identifying historic structures in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, duly motioned by Mr. McKellen and seconded by Mr. Somerville. These will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. The consent agenda is now approved. Item number 12 is matters arising out of the caucus executive session. I will call on Mr. Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Out of executive session, I'd like to move the county administrator be directed to request line item budgets with supporting detail for revenues and expenditures to include personnel expenditures by each department position for all elected and appointed officials.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rodman makes the second, duly motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no
Mr.
discussion.
Chairman, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. The motion was by Mr. Somerville. You will vote first.
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Rodman.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. Flewelling.
I'm going to vote no, sir.
Mr. Glover.
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon. Ms. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. McKellen.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We have 9 yes, 1 no. Mr. Lawson is absent. He had to leave the meeting. Is there any other item coming out of executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Glover.
Yes, thank you. A motion that an ordinance authorizing the county administrator to execute any and all necessary documents to sell real property identified as R700 036 002C 0000, also known as 616 Page Point Road, for $80,000 and a permanent conservation easement on the entire 10-acre tract. That's my motion.
Duly motion.
I'll second
Ms.
motion.
Howard makes the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, that will be approved without objection.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
sir, I don't
Mr.
object, but I'm certainly not going to vote for it. We have questions that we were asking in executive session, and I need to hear the answers before I vote yes. In the interim, I'll vote no.
Mr. Hervishon?
Thank you. Can we clarify the motion on the conservation easement and whether or not that will allow for any sort of buildings on that property? Please.
Can't. That's the thing, we can't.
Right, a conservation easement restricts certain things, correct?
Can I see the conservation easement? Do you have a copy of it?
We do not.
No, we're just seeking approval for you all tonight to authorize us to take additional steps. This will give us the right to bring an ordinance before you all for 3 readings for us to dispose of the property at that particular point in time. We will have a draft conservation easement if you all would like to provide us direction or make it a part of the motion tonight that the conservation easement should limit any type of building development on that property. I'm happy to entertain that through an amendment or a modification of the motion on the floor.
I'm under the impression that a conservation easement for the entire tract means exactly what you said, but if you need that, I will move to include that.
Yeah, some conservations do allow development on the property to a certain degree, so if you all want us to instruct when we're drafting the conservation easement, the individual to make sure that we include language in there that no building construction occur on the property as part of the conservation easement terms, then we're happy to do that.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that when you talk about a conservation easement on the entire tract, unless you stipulate in the easement that I want one building on there, that means that no building would be on there. That's my understanding of the conservation easement.
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
And no one has said that they wanted any building on the property.
Yeah.
So the property would basically remain as is, except for timbering or whatever he wants to do with it, farming or whatever. But that's my impression of a conservation easement. But if you need that, I'll be glad to add that to it.
Yeah, I don't think we need it as long as we're clear with that the council does not want any buildings on there. We will adjust it accordingly when we bring that draft back to you.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, just to make everyone else aware of why we're even having a discussion about it, we're moving forward to sell a property for less than the appraised value with the assumption that we will be able to protect the property. But on easements, for conservation easements, you can still build houses on those tracts. So the reason I'm going to vote against this is because I look at it from a business standpoint. This gentleman says he wants to keep the land the way it is, but that doesn't stop him based on the easement or the conservation that he can't build property on it later on, put multiple houses on it and sell those houses. And even if we have this easement in place, he can still go forward to it, and we would just have to go to court to stop it and spend the money in court to stop it. I understand the logic behind it. I don't think we should sell the property for less than our value of it. We have no need to. We're not pressured to. So I am going to continue to vote against this until there is an absolute guarantee that nothing will be able to build on this property, which I have not seen how that can be done yet.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment? Conservation easements follow the deed of the property, and we can have that written into the language of the draft ordinance when we come forward with the 3 readings, so that will be ensured that there will be no buildings on it, just to make it clear. And it will follow the property, not the owner, and it's not challengeable at that point. So I will be voting yes for this too.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a comment, sir, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, we talk about the need for affordable housing in Beaufort County, and yet we continually take measures to make land more valuable, more expensive. This is a perfect example. The value of the property to us is the $100,000 that is the appraised value of the property. For us to take less than that, and put a conservation easement on it, takes that property off the off the market for availability for public housing or any kind of housing, any low, moderate income or any kind of family housing at all. This area is not subject to overdevelopment at this time. It's actually a very low density rural area that would be appropriate for us to have 1 or 2 houses on it without any real pressure on our infrastructure. I think that we ought to continue to leave this on the market, and if it becomes a valuable piece of property to somebody, valuable enough to pay the $100,000 that it's worth, we should go ahead and accept it. And placing a conservation easement on it when there is no development pressure just doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you.
Mr. Rodman.
Oh. Yeah, as I reflect on this, I think the arguments are reasonably strong that this may not be the right thing to do. Actually, the purchaser, I think, would be better off to pay the additional $20,000 and have the right to develop it downstream, but he can still protect his view for as long as he wants to.
Exactly. Thank you.
Mr. Glover.
Yes. It seems to me that the buyer is interested in protecting the land in front of him, which is the whole entire 10 acres. So he's offered 80% discount or 20% discount for the property to put a conservation easement. However, if the buyer purchases it for the whole entire appraised price, which is $100,000, and come back to the rural and critical land program and ask for a conservation easement, will we not give him that conservation easement? It seems to me that we are getting a bargain deal in this. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, if he's going to come back to us at $100,000, then he's still going to come back to us at $100,000. We make an extra $20,000. And we fought in arguments over less than $20,000 on other property on this council before. So if he really wants the conservation easement, he can offer the $100,000 and still come back for the conservation easement.
If I might add, I'm not in favor of selling it for the reduction of the $80,000 that the buyer is proposing. I feel like we should sell it for the appraised value of the $100,000. And then if we want to put a easement on it, then so be it. But I don't think we should sell it under the fair market value.
Okay. Any other comments before I call the roll? Okay. Mr. Glover, you made the motion. You will vote first.
Yes. Can I vote again?
Ms. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
No.
Mr. Dawson.
No.
Mr. Flewelling.
No.
Mr. Hervishon.
Yes.
Mr. McKellen.
Yes.
Mr. Rodman.
No.
Mr. Somerville.
No.
4. The chair votes yes, which means the item fails because it is 5-5.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to have a split vote on such an important issue. Let us, I would recommend that we table, defer, whatever the appropriate term is, let Brittany go back to the person that put in the bid and say, hey, you need to probably up your offer to another $20,000 to $100,000, and let us bring that back to you at next council meeting.
Well, we've already taken the vote, therefore the vote stands. It can come back if someone on the no side asks for it to be reconsidered next time. But it can't be reconsidered now, right? It could be it would need to be reconsidered in this meeting. In this meeting, yes. But it could also be brought back at any time. Correct.
With new conditions.
Yes. Yeah.
Seems to me if he agrees to pay the appraised value, you don't have to come back to us because he did the other properties.
You're right.
You're coming back to us.
Good po- good
That's
point.
the way out of it.
That's a good
Yep.
point.
Okay. Moving along. We begin with public hearings and third readings. I would ask a member of the council to approve item number 13, which is a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 budget ordinance for the receipt of the ARPA funds. A motion, please.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McKellen makes the motion.
I'll
Mr.
second.
Cunningham makes the second. Is there a member of the public who wishes to comment? I see no public comments. We'll close the public comments. Is there a member of council who wishes to ask a question? Mr. Rodman?
Yeah, my understanding of this is kind of a budgetary, but the individual items within it will have to still come back to approval for us.
It's being put in a special revenue fund.
Yes, the items that require you, committee or council approval will have to come back before committee or
Yes.
council. Yes, there'll be some things that the county administrator can do based on the purchasing.
Okay.
policies.
Duly motioned and seconded. The discussion has taken place. This will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item number 14, I would ask a member to approve item number 14, which is a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance amending the Beaufort County Ordinance 2008/17 and adopting the Buckwalter Access Management Plan. Motion, please.
I'll move for approval, sir, without objection.
Mr. Flewelling will make the motion. Mr. Rodman will make the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion? There is no discussion. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment? Seeing no comments from the public, we've satisfied that aspect, and this will be approved without objection, and there are no objections. Item number 15, I ask a member to offer the motion for a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget, Graves Road. Motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Mr. McKellen made the motion. Mr. Flewelling made the second. Is there a member of the public who wishes to make a comment? No member of the public comments? Is there any discussion? This will be approved without objection.
Just one objection on this part.
Mr. Glover makes an objection. Is there anyone else who wishes to make an objection?
Same here.
Mr. Dawson makes an objection. Mr. Somerville makes an objection. Ms. Howard makes an objection. Any others? Seeing none, this will be approved by a 6 yes, 4 no vote. Motion is approved. Item 16, ask a member to make a motion for a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget to purchase the Bcso Dowling lots. Motion?
So moved.
Mr. Somerville makes the motion.
Second.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
It's fine. Just give it to Allison.
Okay. Ms. Howard, you will get the second. Any member of the public wish to make a comment? Seeing none, public portion is closed. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, this will be approved without objection, and there are no objections. Yep, Mr. Cunningham.
You always, yeah, he objects.
I'm sure Chris will, yeah.
Okay, we have 2 objections. Any others? Motion will carry 8 yes, 2 no. Item 17 is a public hearing and third reading of an ordinance regarding a text amendment to the Beaufort County Code of Ordinances, Article 7, Division 4, Section 2-508, 509, 13, 17, and 41, 541, to update the administrative changes to provide the necessary contract dollar thresholds and to update exemption provisions and procedures. A motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McKellen, you will make the motion. Mr. Cunningham?
Second.
You will do the second? Duly motioned and seconded. Is there a member of the public who wishes to make a comment? Seeing none, the public portion is closed. Is there any discussion? There is no discussion. This will be approved without objection, and there are, yes? Mr. Hervishon objects. One objection. Any others? Seeing none, it will be approved, 9 yes, 1 no. Item 18, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to amend Article 9, Government-Owned Property and Facilities Division 2 of the Beaufort County Code of Ordinance to include a new section 2-675, Camping Prohibited. Motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McKellen makes the motion. Second?
I'll second, Mr.
Ms. Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and second. Any member of the public wish to comment on this? Seeing none, the public portion is closed. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be...
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote for the motion because I think we need to do something, but I am hoping that the issue of homelessness will be addressed by this council at some point in time. Thank you.
Okay. Duly motioned and seconded. This will be approved without objection. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion is approved. Item number 19 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance amending Section 3, Article 3, Section 2 of the 2020 Business License Tax Ordinance so that the definition of business means any business, calling, occupation, profession, or activity engaged in which the object of gain, benefit, or advantage, either directly or indirectly, in addition to the above described activities constituting doing business in the county, an individual owns and rents 2 or more residential units or holds a partial interest therein within the county, excluding the municipalities therein. This applies to 30 days or more only. A motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flewelling makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. McKellen makes the second. Duly motioned and second. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on this? Seeing none, the public portion is closed. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, this will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item 20 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance approving the conveyance of portions of the right-of-way known as the Bostic Road and authorizes the county administrator to execute the necessary documents. A motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flewelling makes the motion. Mr. Glover makes the second. Is there a member of the public who wishes to comment about this? Seeing none, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be approved without objection, and there are no objections. Item 21 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance appropriating funds from the Accommodations Tax Fund based upon recommendations from the Accommodations Tax, the State 2% Board, to tourism-related organizations in the amount of $800,000. A motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McKellen makes the motion.
I will second.
Mr. Cunningham makes the second. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment about this? Seeing none, the public portion is closed. Is there any comments from council?
Yes, sir.
Mr.
I have one.
Flewelling.
Like I believe several members of council, I'm concerned about the Tabernacle Baptist Church's request for money regarding the Harriet Tubman Memorial that they're planning and contemplating right now.
That's actually item 29.
Sorry?
Brian, that's actually item 29. This is the 2%, not the 3%.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, I got the numbers mixed up.
That's okay.
I'll hold my comment.
Yes.
For the appropriate one. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other discussion? This will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item 22, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance amending the 21-22 budget ordinance to approve the funding of the Boundary Street Tennis Courts project, approve the recommendations to award IFB number 11222-1E construction contract, and to make appropriations therefore. Motion, please.
So moved, sir.
Second.
Mr. McKellen, motion. Mr. Glover, second. Any member of the public wish to make comments? Seeing none, the portion of the public is closed. Any concerns about county council? Seeing none, this will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item 23 is a first reading of an ordinance for approval of a zoning map amendment rezoning request for 19 rural and critical lands preservation program properties from various zoning districts to T1 Natural Preserve. Ms. Howard makes the motion. A second,
I'll second.
please. Mr. Flowing, you will do the second?
Thank you.
Duly motioned and seconded. Any discussion? This will be approved for first reading without objection, and I see no objections. Mr. Flewelling, will you make the motion for item number 24, which is a first reading of an ordinance for the approval of a zoning map amendment request for 6.26 acres, also known as 186 Cherokee Farms Road, from T2 Rural to T4 Hamlet Center open?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly will. I'm very enthusiastic about the project, having seen it in various phases throughout its infancy to now. I'm very happy that this is coming about. I think it'll be a good addition to my district, and I'm enthusiastic about it, sir. I ask for the support of all members of the County Council.
Okay, duly motion. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Somerville makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? This will be approved without objection.
Was there public comment, sir?
There it isn't, because it's the first reading.
Okay, first reading, good.
Okay. This will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item 25 is the first reading of an ordinance for the approval of a text amendment to the Community Development Code, sections A2.40, permitted activities to revise the Ladies Island Community Preservation, Ladies Island Neighborhood Activity Center, and Lady Island Professional Office Districts to include short-term rentals as a special use.
Mr. Chairman.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Dawson makes the second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. I see no objections. Item number 26 is the first reading of an ordinance for the approval of a zoning map amendment. Rezoning request for 6.55 acres known as 28 Buckingham Plantation Drive from T4 Hamlet Center open to T4 Neighborhood Center. A motion, please.
So moved, sir.
Mr. McCellum makes the motion. Ms. Howard makes the second. Duly motioned and second. Any discussion? Mr. Hervishon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is in my district, and when this came before committee, I believe it was earlier this month, I had asked for some data around the number of units that were going to go in here, plus the number of units that are already planned and in the area, because I know that there is some development that's going on that stretch of Bluffton Parkway, and it is very close to the bridge on Bluffton Parkway as well. And I'm just generally concerned about the amount of volume that we're going to be putting into that area. So I'm wondering if we have that data available. As I mentioned at committee, I think it's important to have that context, so we're not just doing these one-off type of things. It's important to have the context as far as how much development is actually going in there and what this would add to it.
Good evening, members of council. And I apologize, I had the number in front of me and I'm having trouble finding it right now. When we analyzed this rezoning, one of the things we look for is to make sure it doesn't trigger a traffic impact analysis. And we anticipate, or by doing an analysis of this property, that this would result in about 40 additional dwelling units, and that's is permitted in the T4 Neighborhood Center District. And so that really is a pretty minor increase in what that property would yield but because it's just going from T4 Hamlet Center open, which allows 2.5 stories, to T4 Neighborhood Center, which allows 4 stories.
Thank you, but
Yeah.
my real question is the property to the west. How many units are planned to go in there? The property across the street, how many units are planned to go in there? So this is 40 units, yes, but in the context of the total development that's going on that stretch of road, that's really what I'm interested in.
Well, there is a property to the west that you had mentioned, which is almost identical in size, and that, we have seen several plans for that property, but nothing has ever been formalized, in the neighborhood of about 240 units, multifamily. This site is very similar to that, and they're looking at a similar type of density. But to date, we have not seen any formal plans. You know, we've been going back and forth, you know, because they're both odd-shaped properties. They're very long and narrow. The only other area or property with development potential is the golf course. I believe it's Old South, has a residential component, but that has never been executed. So right now there's just a golf course with open land between the greens. So that does have some additional development potential for single-family residential.
Thank you. I'm intending to vote no on this at this time. Frankly, I'm just a little bit concerned about what's going on with Hilton Head National, the property next door to that, which is this property. I think that the compounding effect of that and then being so close to the bridge, frankly, just makes me a little bit uneasy, and I'm not going to support it at this time. But thank you for that update. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, I was at that same meeting with Chris, and we sort of shared the same idea on it. About a year ago, we had property near this come up for the same type of rezoning. I voted no on that, and it's the same thing. The whole point of the Bluffton Parkway is to make traffic flow easier from Hilton Head to the existing neighborhoods throughout Beaufort County till it gets down to 170. All this does to me is bottle up the bridge even more than it already is. There is already residential communities in that area. People are trying to expand. I've always liked to keep it from one side of the Bluffton Parkway to the other. I intend to vote no as well. I think we need to get a lot more things figured out before we just approve more zoning for more residential. I can tell you I get more emails about this area exploding than anything else. And we're just about to approve more in a moment. And just to clarify one thing you said a minute ago, did you say that the property next to it was about the similar size of it? And it was planned for 240 dwellings, but this one they're only estimating to be 40. If that is true and they're the same, I don't see how they wouldn't be able to put the 200 on that one as well.
No, so there are 2 long, narrow properties. This is actually 2 properties. One is zoned, making up about 12 acres. And then there's a property next to it, which is the executive golf course, the old executive golf course, which is about the same size. With those 2, it's about 240 each. What we calculated is that this property is currently, half of it is zoned T4 Neighborhood Center, the other half zoned T4 Hamlet Center open. And the differential between the 2 is about 40 units. That would, 40 dwelling units.
40 units is the difference between the 2 properties. So it could still be around, so one of them could be 100 and the other one could be 80, or 120 and 80, or however you want to break that up. So it's not only 40 units is what I'm saying on this property.
40
it's more than
is
40 units.
The additional, that would be the additional impact if the zoning amendment were approved.
On top of what they already are approved
Correct.
for. I understand.
You're going to have about 480 units on both properties.
Yeah, I'm going to intend to vote no on that. We have to stop somewhere.
Okay, any other comments?
So this changes it from 42.5-story units to 44-story units. Is that what the change?
Well, we're talking about multifamily dwelling units. Roughly, and this is all kind of ballpark estimates because, you have to factor in stormwater and open space, and what these sites could actually yield. But we've anticipated, just by doing some analysis, that this property could yield, with this rezoning, approximately 240 units. Without it, it would be about 200. because it's a split zone property, so the increase in zoning is only affecting half of it.
But it allows it to go from 2.5 to 4 stories.
Correct.
For how many units?
The unit number is based on looking at what the land could yield and the heights of the building. And so 2.5, we're basically doing almost a mathematical equation where, 2.5 is, let's say, 5/8, and 4 is 8, is a whole. So it's kind of doing a comparison of what this property of 6 acres had 2.5-story apartment buildings versus 4-story. And that's where we got the additional 40 units.
So the rezoning gives it an additional 40 units.
Correct. That's the differential between if they developed with the current zoning versus what is being proposed this evening.
Any of those proposed to be affordable housing?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other? Mr. Herbishon?
I'm sorry, I just have two more. I want to be sure I'm 100% clear on this. So for this particular property, what we're really talking about is vertical density as opposed to just more horizontal density at 2.5 stories. Do I have that right?
Yes, these are transect zones, and so the districts themselves don't have a density cap. So the density is basically a result of what the land could yield in terms of building placement, parking, stormwater, open space. And so with 4-story buildings versus 2.5, you're going to be able to get more vertical units in there. And so the differential between the 2.5 stories and the 4 stories is estimated at about 40 units.
Okay. And on that side of Bluffton Parkway, between the entrance to Hilton Head National and the on-ramp to the bridge, as it is currently zoned, we're looking at 440 units.
Approximately 480 units. That's assuming...
Currently, the way that it is right now.
No, currently 440.
Going to 480.
With this 480, yes,
Got it.
correct.
And then, I'm trying to go from memory here, but on the opposite corner of Hilton Head National on Malfris, I think it is, maybe, don't quote me on that. Is there some units going in there as well?
Currently, the only developments that is happening is the RV park at Hilton Head National. The remainder of that site is a golf course, and there is I'm not aware of any additional land on that side of Bluffton Parkway between Malfris and Buckingham Plantation that has development potential. The only other property I'd mention is the Old South Golf Course, which has a residential component that has remained undeveloped.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay.
This will be voted upon. I see that there are 2 individuals who will be voting no. Is there anyone else who wishes to vote no?
Yeah,
Mr. Somerville? Me. Mr. McKellen, so that's 4 no. Is there anyone else?
I don't want to vote no at this time, but I do desire that the 2 representatives from that district have a voice at the Natural Resource Committee to kind of talk through this, which means that I may be voting, I hate to vote yes to a project in someone else's district without getting clarification, but I'm going to vote yes to move it along. But I hope that at our next Natural Resource Committee, we can address some of their concerns and see how that flesh out. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
The way I see the voting, it will be 6 yes and 4 no. Is there anyone disagree?
Before we move forward with that, Mr. Glover, that is actually Chris's district who is in opposition of it. And then it affects mine and Mark Lawson's as well. We were at that committee before. I can tell you for sure.
I knew that.
Yeah.
You in the same neck of the wood, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, so 26 passes with 6.
For some reason, we can't hear Councilmember Flewelling.
Mr. Flewelling?
going to vote yes to move it along to second reading, but I can tell you I'm not guaranteed at all to vote for it at second reading. I have to think about this for a little while, but let's move it along. So I'm a yes conditionally today.
Okay, so we're 6 yes, 4 no. Item 27 is the first reading of an ordinance authorizing the county administrator to execute the necessary documents to convey a portion of property owned by Beaufort County with the TMS number 200 010-000-017-040. A motion, please. Ms. Howard makes the motion. A second, please. I'll second. Mr. Glover makes the second. Any discussion about this? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. Item 28 is the first reading of an ordinance to amend the 21-22 budget to recognize ARPA funding expenditures.
So moved, sir.
Mr. McKellen makes the motion. Second?
Second.
Mr. Dawson makes the second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. I see no objections. Item number 29 is the first reading of an ordinance for the approval of the fiscal year 2022 local accommodations and local hospitality tax grant awards in the amount of $2,149,808 to be provided out of the local accommodations tax fund and the local hospitality tax fund. May I have such a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Somerville makes the motion. Mr. McKellen makes the second. Discussion. Mr. Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the last year or so, there has been a lot of discussion in this country about who does not deserve a statue honoring them. I hope there's going to be a little more discussion about people who do actually deserve a statue. And I'm going to tee that up and kick that off by saying I'd like to amend item number 29 from $2,149,808 to $2,349,000, and I'm sorry, $2,349,808, which is an increase of $200,000. There are a number of people who've been working diligently to put up a statue of Harriet Tubman. I hope everyone will agree that she is certainly deserving of a statue. And they've raised close to $200,000, I think, already. And this will get them well along the way to being able to put in that statue, well deserved. So I move that we amend item 29 from $2,149,808 to $2,349,808 from the local hospitality tax fund, provided that the staff and other parties with interest in the statue/monument are able to enter into agreements which satisfy the legal requirements for the use of these funds.
Okay?
I'll second that.
And we'll need a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Mr. Somerville made the motion to amend. Mr. Glover made the second. Mr. Somerville, since you made the motion, you can go first, and then followed by Mr. Glover, and then whoever else wants to comment.
Well, simply to say that that Harriet Tubman has a stamp named after the bridge at the Combahee River is named after her. She has a lot of things named after her, but I think a statue would be very appropriate in a location in Beaufort County. So I'm obviously going to support this.
Mr. Glover.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I appreciate the motion that's on the floor. My only, there was a question that was asked to me about 2 years ago, and it actually centered around any document that could prove that Harriet Tubman and Robert Smalls actually had a conversation. They were here during the same time, and no one ever found any documentation to that. There is the belief that they must have come in contact with each other because of the Tabernacle Baptist Church and the effort that she was doing, but there was no written document to justify to indicate that. So having that statue on both sites, at least we know that they are together in appearance. And the Tabernacle Baptist Church is taking this on as an effort, and I applaud them for that. And they have been working for the last 4 years trying to raise the money to do this. And they are just over $200,000. And so if it's okay with Mr. Somerville, I would love to at least increase that to half of the cost of a $5 million project, which means that Beaufort County would have at least attributed half the cost of that. So, Mr. Somerville, are you amenable to raising that to $50,000 more?
So you're amending my
Yes.
amendment?
Yes.
Okay,
If you would second it?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the amendment has been amended to increase the amount of expenditure by another $50,000. Is there a discussion on that aspect of the amendment?
So just so that I'm clear, Mr. Chairman, so now the request is now going to be funded at $250,000?
That's correct. That's the amendment to the amendment, so we have to deal with that first.
All right.
Any
all right.
further discussion? Is there anyone opposed to raising the amount from $200,000 to $250,000? I see no opposition. Therefore, the amendment to raise the amount of money to $250,000 is approved without objection. We're now at the amendment, which will now be raising the total amount of money to $2,399,808. Is there any further discussion? This will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Therefore, we're back to the original motion, is to now have a first reading of the local accommodation tax to include the new amount of $2,399,808. Is there anyone wish to make comments before we vote? Seeing none, this will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Okay, we're at item, yes, sir.
I just want to clarify one thing for, I think council understands it. I want to make sure that anyone that may be viewing and in attendance here understands that the award of $250,000 to Tabernacle Baptist requires further work and further discussion
Yes.
between the staff and the trustees of the church so that we can figure out a legal way to do that
And
contribution.
this is only the first reading. We have a public hearing and 2 other readings. All right,
Can I make one more clarification? It's not the 250 to the Tabernacle Baptist Church, it's 250,000 for the monument statue,
right.
provided that we can satisfy all the legal requirements for the use of that money for those purposes.
Correct.
It is fine for, it's our opinion, that a tax is appropriate for this statute, for this monument. All right? That's not the question. The question is, where does it go, and who does it go to?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not, the money is not going to the church. The money is going to the project.
Right.
We need to work out the legal details with regard to the location and the party that receives it. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
29 has passed as amended. Item number 30 is a first reading of an ordinance of the County Council of Beaufort County, South Carolina, establishing and adopting an emergency medical services development impact fee to be imposed on all new development in the county except for the new development in the town of Hilton Head Island to ensure that EMS facilities, stations, and emergency vehicles will be available and adequate to accommodate the need expected to be generated from new development in the county, except within the town of Hilton Head Island, based on the county's level of service standards for EMS facilities and capital improvement plan, and assign the cost of such EMS facilities on a proportionate share basis to new development. A motion, please.
So moved, sir.
Mr. McKellen makes the motion. A second, please. Mr. Rodman makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Mr. Cunningham. Well, wait a second. Because it was duly motioned and seconded, Mr. McKellen, do you need to make a comment?
No.
Mr. Rodman?
No.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, I just had one question. I was looking at the breakdown of the fees, and then it goes into non-residential. My question's going to be, when it talks about the retail space, is that only when it's being built, or are they going to get hit with that impact fee every time a new business goes into a strip mall or anything like that?
Sure, good evening. I'll be happy to address that. So, impact fees are assessed when the initial development is made based on the occupancies of whatever is in that building. Could be more than one. For a strip mall, you may have 10, right? So each one is assessed based on its occupancy. If that occupancy changes and there is an impact fee delta that would have raised the impact fee due, then they have to pay the difference.
So, for example, let's say there was a Subway in a shop, and that went out, and somebody down the street decides to open up their own sandwich shop in that same building. If it's possible, they would have to pay that impact fee again, or no?
If it's in the same space,
okay,
sandwich shop for sandwich shop, there is no fee. There's no delta between the two because they're the same use.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments?
I have one, sir.
Mr. Flewellen, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm going to conditionally approve this today, vote for it today, but I reserve my vote at second reading to change based on acceptance of this proposal by the municipalities. This is the same objection I'll have to the next item as well.
Okay. All right. Duly motioned and seconded, will be approved without objection. Are there any objections? I see no objections. Item 30 is approved. 31 is the first reading of an ordinance for the approval of a text amendment to the Beaufort County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 82 Impact Fees, Article 1 in general, 2 Development Impact Fees, Article 3 Parks and Recreation Facilities, Article 5 Library Facilities, Article 6 Fire Facilities, and effective dates. A motion, please.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Somerville made the motion. Mr. Dawson makes the second. And any discussion by you, Mr. Somerville?
No, sir.
Mr. Dawson?
Well, yes, I would.
Right.
Just a general comment about impact fees. I know there's a lot of debate about impact fees, but there's...
Please turn on your mic.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of debate about impact fees, or some debate. But the reality is, whether it's EMS or whether it's schools or whatever it is, it's going to happen. If something needs to be done, it's going to be done. It's going to be built. It's going to be purchased. But if we don't have the impact fees, that means that people in 6%ers are going to pay a disproportionate share. And that includes renters, that includes businesses, and that includes second homes. But people think about second homes and they think, oh, good, then it will be paid for by these rich people who come down here and have second homes. That's only partially true. There's also everybody in Beaufort County that lives in an apartment is paying a disproportionate share if there's no impact fee to pay for it. And it's doubly true with respect to schools, because school fees, operating fees, are not charged on primary homes. So as you're thinking about impact fees, remember, if you say no to impact fees, you're saying yes to let's raise rents, let's raise the cost of businesses, and let's raise the cost of second homes. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dawson, did you wish to make any comment? Mr. Flewellen?
Yes, thank you. I have the same objection to this. I will vote to move it forward, but my vote at second reading is conditioned upon acceptance of the proposal by the municipalities, evidenced by a vote, or at least something positive. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham?
Just to
Him and I have disagreed on this before, so it's not a surprise, but some of what he's saying I disagree with, and that has to do with impact fees. We put a school impact fee in that no municipality that I'm aware of has signed on to yet, that agreed to it, and that actually does hurt affordable housing. It is $16,000 in Beaufort County right now, just for the impact fees right off the bat, and we know that is being passed down to the buyer.
Okay, any further comments? This will be approved without objection. Are there any objections? I see no objections. Item 31 is approved at first reading. Number 32, first reading of an ordinance for the approval of a text amendment to the Community Development Code, drive-through facilities to clarify the standards for drive-throughs in transect zones and to add/amend standards to manage the development of drive-throughs in both the transect and conventional zones. Ms. Howard makes the motion. Mr. Somerville makes the second. Is there any comments by the maker of the motion or second?
Just one comment. As we go forward, we're going to see the request, I think, more and more for drive-throughs for many reasons in our community, and I hope this will help with some of the solutions to the problems that can be generated by drive-throughs.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I absolutely support this. It's been a long time coming, and anybody who reads the newspaper knows that there's been a lot of controversy of late about drive-ins, coffee shops, or whatever in highly congested areas, and this gives us a little bit of an opportunity to be more selective in who gets to do what where with drive-ins. I don't think there's anybody in this county who hasn't run into a backed up situation on an arterial road with somebody waiting to get a cup of caffeine and sugar. So I'm glad it's happening, and it's going to give us a real opportunity. I'm speaking specifically about Ladies Island right now because that's where the ground zero is today, but tomorrow it's going to be somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I just want to know if we can bring Chick-fil-A in for help on this.
If possible.
Okay, this will be approved without objection. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this is now approved. I'd like, because I want to get out of here at 8 o'clock, I'd like to take items 33, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 as one. I will read the resolutions, have a motion and second, and see if we could do them all at once. I'm seeking approval for a resolution in number 33 to accept the American Rescue Plant grant funds for the Hilton Head Airport in the amount of $1,995,069. In item 34, a resolution to accept the American Rescue Plan ARPA Fund grant funds for the Beaufort Executive Airport in the amount of $32,000. The approval of authorizing a resolution to authorize the county administrator to provide funding not to exceed $25,000 for a design planning charrette to develop a design criteria and drawings to enhance the implementation of the Ladies Island Plan. 36 is approval of a resolution to accept the 2022 Palmetto Pride Litter Prevention Grant Award. 37 is the approval of a resolution to accept the 2022 Palmetto Pride Keep SC Beautiful Affiliate Support Grant Program. 38 is an approval of a resolution for eminent domain for a portion of parcels to install the 2018 1-cent sales tax project Bluffton Parkway path extension, and approval of a resolution for the acceptance of a grant award from the South Carolina Department of Transportation for the Defusky Island Ferry. A motion for those, please. Mr. Rodman makes the motion. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Glover makes the second. Is there any comments by any member of council on any one of those?
Well done, Mr. Chairman.
I see no comments. This will be approved without objection.
Oh, there is some public comment I need to read into the record.
Okay. We can do that with the second public citizen comments. These will be approved without objection. I see no objections. So items 33, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are approved. Okay, we're at citizen comments. Is there any member of the audience who wishes to make a comment? Okay, Ms. Howard, would you read the comment so it'll be in the record? Microphone.
This is from Mr. Dennis Nelson. He is Southern Beaufort County Corridor Beautification Board Chair, and he says, to members of Beaufort County Council, as the newly elected chair of the Southern Beaufort County Corridor Beautification Board, it is my understanding that all county financial support for the SBCCBB will soon be discontinued. I wish to express my disappointment. From all the positive statements concerning the improvements of the views along Highway 278, I and other board members have heard from members of the community and visitors. I believe this is a high return on investment factor for business, pride in the community, and support for the tourist industry. I do remember not that long ago when the grass wasn't mowed very often and other not so welcoming trash was present. I do realize the increased cost for maintenance and DOT changes and plant selection, and certainly these changes must be considered. However, how much is too much for showing a pleasant welcome to all who visit us? Lastly, when has the County Council surveyed the community to get their evidence that the beautification of the Southern Corridor is not worth support by the community? If you have that data, please share it so that this choice is more than a small number of community leaders. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak my views. Dr. Dennis Nelson, a community member for 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further action to come before the County Council? Seeing none, this meeting is now adjourned.